Hello, everyone, and we are live. Nice to meet you, and nice to welcome you on this first session about getting started with MCP in Russia. Before we actually get started with the content of this session, um, and while we wait for others to join, maybe if you are in the chat, you can tell us what is your familiarity with MCP, and actually what are you building with it. I started using Mistral API and I cannot get enough. Thanks, guys. That's the kind of message that I want to see. We'll just wait 1 or 2 minutes before getting started, or all the late one. Hello from Rennes. Hello from Paris here. Familiar with concept, not on execution. Yeah, then this first session will be a lot about concept, and the next one will be about creating custom MCP, so more about execution. MCP server for cybersecurity. Cool. All right. I think we'll get started. So let me switch to the actual presentation. Nice to meet you. My name is Geoffrey. In Mistral, I'm a developer relation engineer, meaning like I handle documentation, I handle the contact with you guys, and the rest of the developer-facing roles. And I'm here accompanied by Ravi. Hi, Ravi.
Hi everyone. Great to meet you, all of you. I'm an AI consultant within the development team at Mistral AI. I work on agentic use cases and help build courses and other things. Super excited to show all of you about the MCP within Legend.
Awesome. Thanks, Ravi. So Ravi will join us back at the end of this presentation for Q&A. And this is a good moment to tell you that we are going to have a special time at the end of the presentation for Q&A. All right. So without further ado, let's get started. If we are here today, this is for a great news that you might have seen last week. Our chat assistant called Le Chat got an exciting upgrade. It is now fully loaded with MCP servers that allow you to bring external capacity in your chat assistant. We have like very good names that we are proud to bring to you directly in Russia, like GitHub, Notion, PayPal, and Hugging Face, to name a few. But it really brings like superpower to your chat interface. For the one of you that didn't see it, let me just play to you the announcement video. All right, I'm seeing a comment right now saying that they don't understand anything about MCP. This is the first session about getting started with it. So this is like the perfect timing to do so if you are not familiar with MCP. So MCP, as we've seen in the video, is a server that allow you to have external capacity in your chat assistant. MCP actually stands for Model Context Protocol, and it's a protocol that allow your AI app to integrate new capacities. So the most known one is actually tools, but there's also prompt and other resources that you can access. For the most accustomed to AI around you, you might wonder, what about function calling? This is actually not a replacement to function calling, but it can go hand in hand. So in traditional function calling, you would like ask a question about, I want to know the current weather in Paris, for instance, and you would pass along a function. This function would have like parameters that would take inside of it, and the model would answer you with the parameter that it wants to call the function with. And depending on the library that you are using, you may have to do the call yourself, which is the case in our library, but other library do the call for you. So you would get those parameters, you would fill in the query yourself, and you would be able to make the call. And so in this case, the decision on what parameter are the most efficient if to call this exact function is made by the AI model. But as I explained, this has a little bit of shortcomings, um, which is why we invented MCP. So MCP is here for many reasons. We had like fragmented AI landscape. As I explained, we have multiple AI providers, us, Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, with each having unique APIs, each unique having different ways to declare their tools. And so the interconnection is usually not so great, meaning like even if you take like a tool from the long chain ecosystem, for instance, and you try to import it into the small agent ecosystem, this is not like working. And the same goes for small agent to our ecosystem, for instance. So you can see that the ecosystem was fragmented without a clear guide on how you actually create some tools and how do you integrate different tools in different ecosystem. You would also have like security concerns. For instance, like in the previous example that we saw, we had an API key involved. How do you handle this API key is up to you, and it can like pose obviously some concerning issues for security depending on how you implement your function. And there's a lot of duplication of work. If I do create a function call and I want to pass it along to Ravi, for instance, that we saw previously, there's a lot of chance that is going to have to code the same function again from scratch. And even from one person to another, but like from one framework to another is the same problem. So MCP is a protocol that much we have understood. It allows you to have tools, prompt, and resources, but it's a communication between two sides, one client on one end and a server on the other end. A client can be, for instance, Le Chat, which is the case in this presentation. It can be an SDK. For instance, we have a agent SDK that can interact with MCP servers, or an ID. The most famous example might be VS Code or Cursor. You can call MCP server from those clients. On the other side, you have servers. Servers can be two types of servers. Local, meaning like you are running the server on your own computer. And in this case, the server and the client are the same machine. Or remote, meaning like the server is actually on a different machine than the client. And this is the local one are called STDIO, and the remote one are using the HTTP protocol. So there's different protocols. As we just saw, the local one are using STDIO. This is cool for local transport. It uses the standard input output streams. And this is usually used in command line tools and integration. For instance, if you have a local app, you can declare an stdio app that would spin up like an stdio MCP that would spin up that app, use it, and like spin it down. The constraint is that it's only limited to the same machine operation. And on the other side, you have the HTTP ones. So SSE, which handles remote servers. This was the first one created in the MCP family. It allows for remote transport. It has events that are sent streaming from the server to the client, but the client needs to do post requests if you want to send messages to your server. And it has one big drawback, is that it requires a constant connection to be up. And this is why this one has been deprecated recently. You can still use it in most clients, but I'm expecting it to be not the case in the coming months. It has been replaced by streamable HTTP, which is the replacement for SSE, and the main advantage is that it doesn't require actually a constant connection. So in the end, you only have two options. It's either you are a local server, running a local server that handles CLI option, file system handling, or local apps. And in this case, you have an stdio MCP server. And for all the other cases, basically you have a streamable HTTP MCP server. So the connection and talk between the client and the MCP server is done to a JSON format. The server has some tools that are loaded on there. This is the difference with function calling. On function calling, you would have the tools on your side. You would pass them to the model, and it would return the parameters. Here, you only get a textual description. So simplified, it may be said like that. The client is, do you have some tools? And the MCP server would answer you with a textual description of what this tool actually does. So in this case, it's the same implementation of the get weather tool. If you give me latitude and longitude, I will give you back the weather as a string. And it has many important parameter and consideration to take. If we zoom in a little bit, we can see that it is declared from a decorator. That decorator, in this case, is from the FastMCP library, meaning that you have an app. You can consider an app and an MCP server just like an API on which you can send requests and receive some information. And the only need that you have to declare a new tool on your API is to have this decorator on top of a function. As you can see, we have a description for that function. This is the information that the client gets. So if it wants some information about how to use this specific function, it's going to be given by the description. So this is very important for MCP creators to be careful to what description they do give to their tools. Important too is the input and output typing. So in this case, I did specify that I need a latitude and longitude as floats, and I would return a string. So in this case, you have a client that can talk to an MCP server. This MCP server has many resources with many sync tools, because this is the one that you're going to use most of the time, but they can also be prompt and resources. And so you ask requests to your MCP servers, and your MCP server, which has the tool locally, can then handle other requests like database requests, file system management in the case of stdio, or just communicating with external resources, just like GitHub, Linear, or Hugging Face. I'm not taking those examples randomly. It's because it's going to be the base of the demo that we're going to do right after. There's another component to MCP servers. In reality, it's not like one client, one server communication. You have one client, which is in our case, Le Chat. Let me remind you of that connects with multiple MCP servers, each having their own unique tools, each having their unique prompt, and each having their unique resources. And the difference between all these MCP servers is the authentication process. There's three types of authentication process that are currently handled. Either no authentication, if you just have the URL on which the MCP server is running, you are good to go to use this MCP server. The second case, for instance, this is like the first case of no authentication. This is the one that I use, for instance, for requesting Reddit through a server that I host on Hugging Face. Since it's just web crawling, I don't need any authentication. I can just answer to any request coming in. The second one is GitHub. It does need a token. So you can create a token that gives some rights, and you decide which rights you give to Le Chat on your GitHub account, and through the mean of a token. You can connect with this token and select the scope of what Le Chat can do to your account. So this is already a layer on top of security that you don't have at all on no notification, and it had a little bit of personalization in the sense that it now have access to your personal account and not like general GitHub. And finally, the latest one is OAuth 2, meaning it has full access on your account. This is the case for Linear, for instance, but we'll see that in action directly in Le Chat soon. Once you have set up your MCP servers, the integration of how you talk to Le Chat is no different from any application, like RAG, function calling, or any of those. I ask a question, the LLM has some tools that it can access. It needs to make a choice. Does it answer directly? Or does it need to use one or more MCP servers to answer this question? And the loop is basically going as such. You have a question, do I need to call one of my MCP servers to answer this question? And this is a model-based decision. If not, then I can answer. If yes, I loop as many times as necessary between calling different MCP servers to fulfill the request. All right, it was probably a little bit dense. So let me suggest that we do a demo now. I will have to just switch the source of my screen sharing. Give me a little bit of time to do so. All right, so we are now in Le Chat. So how does it present itself, this new feature? As you can see, you have access to some tools. Here are connectors that are available, but other than here, you can mostly see them in the connector tab. The connector tab is presented as such. You have some featured connector that we provide to you as users, is connector that we think might bring a lot of value to you individual users. And you can also add some other connectors. The connector directory is also custom integration that we do on our side and that we give back to you. For anything other than the connector that we do provide, you have the option to add a custom server MCP. Oh, sorry, is there a problem on sharing? I cannot see back to you. Let me share again. Somehow the feedback loop was not working. Yes. Okay. So for all other use cases, you can create your own custom servers. So it needs a name, a connector URL, which in my case, I'm getting from my custom server that I do have on Hugging Face. Let me show you. It's this Reddit MCP. And so every space can be used directly in a browser. So if you do /MCP, the server is hosted here. And so to add a custom server, you only need to have that URL, in this case, -MCP. Obviously, I already have it on my account, so it wouldn't work. And you can add like a description of what this tool actually does. You can find the authentication method that we just talked about, meaning like no authentication at all if you don't need to identify yourself, just token or directly OAuth 2. This authentication method can be found also on the featured connector. For instance, like mine doesn't need any connection, any authentication, and I can see, and you can see that it has like one function available only that does scan the Reddit of Mistral AI for problem on some pain points that our user may have. So this is like the no-auth connectors. On the second option, you have the GitHub one that do take a token that you can specify and save to be connected as with your GitHub account. And the third one is OAuth 2, where you can directly ask to connect to your account. Let's, for instance, get the example of Gmail. It's asking me, do I need to connect? And if I want to give access rights to my account. And then in this case, it would have access to my mails directly. I didn't want to risk it by doing a live demo. So I do have a recording of how those MCP servers can interconnect into an actual live demo. So I hope it can play. So in this case, I do have a Reddit MCP server that can scan Reddit for pain point of Mistral AI user. I do add it into the custom MCP tab in the name of Reddit testing. I had the server URL that you just saw. And just from that simple action, it does have access to the tools that I make available to it. I can then go into the chat. As we can see, there's a little icon onto the tools section that showcases that this tool is available. I asked the Le Chat to scan the Reddit in search of posts that list some pain points that our user may have. It's searching. Now it's done, and it's giving me back many pain points that it had identified with links to the original posts. So in this case, maybe let me pause. It's talking about someone that is using ChatGPT and wants to switch to Le Chat, but doesn't know how to properly switch the memories. Because if you are a user of ChatGPT, it knows things about you that you may want to bring into Le Chat as a new user. And this is a feature that we all actually have, but that this user is not aware of. We just released memories at the same time as MCP, so it is a good example to show to you. So I'm asking, is there actually any accounts, like any tickets, sorry, on my Linear account that talk about this issue? So I'm connecting to Linear. I'm already connecting on my browser on Linear, so it's just directly gives the rights. With OAuth 2, it lists issues, which did succeed, and it tells me it could find a ticket, which is about enabling chat history migration from ChatGPT to Mistral, which is not exactly what I want. The technology is here, but what the user is missing is actually documentation. So I'm asking it, can you edit this ticket to not talk about the technology, but rather documentation, because the technology is actually already here. You can import your memories from ChatGPT to Mistral. It thinks a little bit about it. It creates the action. Whenever you see that happening with no argument provided, it is because the model is actually filling the arguments that it wants to call the tool with. So it's just a bit long, and it's arriving. As you can see, it's the JSON protocol that we talked about. So here it's filling like key value pairs, an ID with the ID, the title with the title that it wanted to change it into, the description to the new description, and then labels as a list of strings. You have on each tool call the ability to decline or continue, or if you want to always trust this specific tool, you can always allow a specific tool to continue whenever it wants to call this tool. But I would not recommend it directly. All right, so it did update the ticket. So I'm asking now, here is the solution of how you can import your memories from ChatGPT into a prompt. I'm connecting with my GitHub account. I'm creating a token, regenerating a token actually. I can copy this token, give it to Le Chat, and then Le Chat just have access to my GitHub account and my repository. I do have a repository called platform.public, which is a fork of our Mistral documentation. And I'm asking, okay, can you go into this repository and create a markdown using the canvas feature, which is what you can see on screen. It's just a preview about many type of document, markdown, HTML, CSS, and so on, that allow you to preview different type of code that Mistral can write. It's good. So I'm asking it to actually make a branch, create the file, and then make the PR after that. So it did create a new branch called Migrate ChatGPT Guide from the main branch on the library, on the repository that asked it to. It did create one file onto this exact branch, and it's perfectly working. I'll go a little bit faster from now because it's computing a little bit. But yeah, it's working. I have a link to the created branch. I can see that the code was just pushed 50 seconds ago. I'm asking, everything is good. Can you make the PR yourself? And indeed, it did make the PR, which was successful. It's giving me back the link to the PR, and everything's perfect. So without quitting like our chat interface, our Le Chat, I was able to scrap Reddit, verify if it was a problem that other team members have identified, and since it was not the case, like actually push a guide onto our documentation to fill in the missing space. All right, let me switch now. Now, general consideration about how to use MCP and how to do well using them. I would recommend you not to load too many tools at once. Some MCP do have a lot of tools. For instance, this is the case of the GitHub one. If you paid close attention to the video demo, you could see that once I'm done with one MCP server, I'm actually not using it anymore by just untoggling it. It's because MCP, just like any other tool, they suffer from the same problems as any other agent. It's with too many tools, it can be lost trying to find the correct tool and identify the correct tool to use. I would recommend you to only use trusted MCP servers. So that can be from the list that we provide, or from MCP servers that you created yourself, or from close person to you. And finally, since we saw that the client, in the case Lusha, is only getting a description about what the tools can do, there's a little bit of a symbiotic relation to find between your prompt that you create and the information from the tool available that it's getting from the MCP servers. So you should create clear prompts by reflecting from the information that it's, the model is getting from the servers. If you want more information on the release, we do have a blog post that we released last week. And if that's all good, we can move on to the Q&A. All right, I'm gonna bring Ravi back up.
Hey.
Hey again.
Hey.
All right, so if you have any question, you can start asking them in the chat. I guess you didn't wait for me to tell you that, but you can ask any question and we will start answering them. Oh yeah, so, sorry, just one last comment. If custom MCP are of interest to you, there's a second session. So this one was about using existing MCP servers that others have created, that we have created. But next session will be about actually creating your own MCP server and using it. In this session, I'm using one that I've created. The next one, we will create one ourselves. So can't wait to see you next week too. I'm seeing a question in Russian. We'll have to ask it in English, sorry. And Ravi, you can start with the first question, I think.
Yeah, cool. So I think a custom MCP setting is possible. Yes, it is possible. I guess you should be attending the next week webinar to understand how you can connect your own MCP, add custom MCP connector to Laychat, and then use it from there.
I'm seeing a question. Does it work for local ones? So for local ones, I'm thinking you refer to STDIO. So no, Lusha cannot connect to STDIO process because, as I explained, this protocol is limited to same machine, and obviously Lusha is on our server while your STDIO tool is on your computer. So there's no connection possible here. But if you take the same function and you expose them over HTTP, it's possible.
Cool. Will it be possible to plug any MCP? Yes. So with custom MCP connections, so you can make a custom MCP connector with this and then add it to Laychat.
So yeah, when will it be the session to create custom MCP? It's actually same time next week. So in 1 week, exactly.
This is about can we connect Laychat, MCP, and Voxtel to process audio? Currently, we don't support audio processing on MCP connections within Laychat. Yeah.
Just to add to that, you do have Voxel directly in Lusha. So for these use cases, you can use the native implementation of Voxel directly in Lusha. But nothing is stopping you from creating an MCP server that use Lusha, that use Voxel, sorry. You can host it on Hugging Face and like have it be used with no notification. It's just that, yeah, can be.
Yeah, so you
A
need
bit
to
more
basically.
complex. But if you want to learn about creating custom MCP servers, like next week is probably the right session for
Yeah.
you. Will the token, like the GitHub token, be stored per user? Yes, exactly. This is the main one of the main interests. Like on one organization, you can be multiple people interacting, and so indeed the token is stored per user and not like for the whole organization. Meaning, like in your company, if you are using the GitHub connectors, is only for you and not like for the rest of your company. That is also on the same organization.
Mhm. Yeah. So, are there drawbacks with MCP? I guess we are still in MCP is still new. It's excellent for scalable and multi-tool agent ecosystems, but also it introduces some complexity and overhead for simple use cases. Let's say if you want to build some simple RAG use case or agentic use workflow use case, it might be an overkill, or it might add some latency as well, which is not needed. So when you want to have some scalable system, MCP is very good way to go for.
Can we request MCP anywhere? As long as the where you want to call it is actually a client. There's a list of supported clients on the MCP website. There's a lot of examples, but as I said in the presentation, those are mostly IDEs. In this demo, our client was Lucia, but you have Cursor, you have Windsurf, VS Code that do support MCP.
Mm.
I can take the next one too, if you don't find
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, sure.
I also wonder whether Hugging Face spaces are free for hosting MCPs. Yes, indeed. Since it's only a fast API, most of the spaces, if you don't require GPU, this is a good option. Is it the most practical? Not sure. There's a lot of other options that allow you to deploy that servers. Uh, that we will go over next week. I'm just a little bit biased, being a former Hugging Face employee. By doing spaces, it's a deformation of mine to do so.
Yeah, so you have seen that OpenAI, ChatGPT, and Claude also support MCP. How is Chat's approach different? What are the unique advantages does it offer? So we support multilinguality, and also OCR is embedded, higher inference speed. Yeah, and we support even the on-prem deployment solution as well.
So there's an interesting question. So when should I use MCP and when function calling? Can you give us some examples? In Lusha, it's going to be MCPs only. But for instance, in our SDK, where you can combine both, it's a little bit up to you. What I would consider if there's prior work already done by someone else, like for instance, if you want to connect to GitHub, you should not like spend too much time recreating what's already existing. So I would like take directly the MCP server. If you want to share it with your others, I would create an MCP servers. Um, but basically, those can be used in the same scenarios if you are planning to use that locally.
Think we have some interesting question on.
Yeah, very interesting question. It's hard to select the one that we answer.
Yeah, someone actually asked for BigQuery connector. Are there any plans for BigQuery connector? So currently we don't have any plans for it, but if you have any interesting use cases around it, please share in the comments. We'll try to see what we can do over there.
So can we use your OCR as an external MCP tool for our needs? The OCR is used to an API. If you want to create an MCP server, that's totally possible, but you will have to create a custom one that will do so. But that's not something impossible at all. Maybe let's answer one or two last question, and then we can wrap
Yeah,
this up.
yeah. I think a lot of people are asking if the session will be available post the session or recorded. Yeah, it is recorded and will be available on YouTube on our channel, Mistral AI. So you can go and watch it later on.
I'm seeing one question purely out of curiosity. Why not having a toggle switch to hide MCP access instead of removing it? Revoking removes it and adding requires manual setup. You can do both actually. You can remove an MCP server, but like while on one conversation, you can totally like decide which MCP you will be using in this conversation. And also, I haven't shown it, but the admin of the organization has the right to untoggle some MCP servers for the whole organization. Meaning, like if you decide that some MCP servers, maybe custom ones that one of your team members did had, is not secured enough, and admin can untoggle it for all the users of this organization. So both are possible, actually.
Maybe we can pick one last one.
Yes. Yeah. Let you pick, and then we can wrap this up.
Yeah, cool. So, does building MCP servers require resource-intensive hardware, or could individuals implement in local environment as well? So, currently, we doesn't support local environment MCP servers. But then, if you can host something on Hugging Face, we can add it as custom MCP server and use it on Alicia. And to answer your question on resource intensive, it depends on what kind of MCP server you are adding. So if you are adding some GPU intensive processing backend in the MCP servers, so it does require some hardware. If it's just some API calls, it doesn't need any hardware. So it
Yeah.
entirely depends on what kind of MCP servers you are building.
Just consider your MCP as an API, and you can have the same consideration as if you were building a fast API or Flask API. If you are planning on in or on calling like a resource intensive model in your MCP server, then you will need a GPU, like I don't know, diffusion, audio generation, those kind of things. But like in both cases, if you're just giving some external tool, uh, the same rules apply as if you would if you would be building an API. It depends on what you do in the MCP server. But for most cases, like a simple CPU is mostly enough. All right, then I think we can wrap this up. Thank you very much, all of you, for coming and attending this session. I can't wait for next week's session where we actually do a deep dive on creating a custom MCP server. If you have ideas or suggestions on what you want to see next week and what I should create next week as an MCP server, do put it in the comments on either LinkedIn or YouTube. I will check it. And if I think it's a great idea or meaningful, I can always change my plan.
Yeah,
Perfect. Thank you very much. Have a
thank you.
great evening and see you next week.
Thank you.